Welcome, esteemed colleagues, to a discussion that traverses the boundaries of time, the Renaissance, a period marked by the rebirth of the luminous glories of the past. In my travels, had I stumbled upon a machine to project me forward, I could think of no era more wondrous to explore.
Indeed, Herodotus, but let us not forget the mechanics of history. The Renaissance did not emerge in a vacuum. It was the product of a complex series of socio-political transformations, each worthy of our attention if we are to truly grasp its significance.
I must interject, Polybius. Your methodical approach, while admirable, sometimes misses the forest for the trees. The true essence of the Renaissance lies not just in its events, but in the shifting paradigms of human thought. We must scrutinize the sources to peel back the layers of myth that have enshrouded this era.
But to understand the Renaissance is to witness the resurrection of Rome's grandeur, the valor and virtue of our ancestors reborn. It was a time that mirrored the moral and cultural zenith of classical antiquity. A return to such principles marks the greatest achievements of mankind.
Livy, your nostalgia clouds your judgment. The Renaissance, for all its artistic and intellectual achievements, was also a time of political intrigue and turmoil. To idealize it is to ignore the blood that stained the cobblestones of Florence and Rome. We must confront the era in all its complexity.
And let us not overlook the deliciously human aspects of the figures who shaped this period. The personal stories, the scandals, they breathe life into the dry annals of history. The individuals of the Renaissance were as flawed and fascinating as any that have come before or since.
Each of your perspectives brings light to different facets of this multifaceted era. The Renaissance was indeed a period of stark contrasts, where human potential was realized against a backdrop of both enlightened thought and brutal reality. As we delve deeper into our discussion, let us keep in mind the rich tapestry of human experience that characterizes this period. Let us begin by exploring the origins of the Renaissance, a subject as debated as it is misunderstood. How did a plague, the Black Death, serve as a grim harbinger for a golden age of art, science, and thought? Let us begin with the Black Death, a calamity so profound it reshaped the very contours of Europe. This plague, wiping out a third of the continent's population, unwittingly cleared the stage for the Renaissance, a phoenix rising from ashes.
Indeed, the socio-economic shifts were monumental. The drastic reduction in the populace resulted in a labor shortage, compelling an elevation in wages, and by consequence, a notable increase in social mobility. This, in its essence, crumpled the erstwhile rigid hierarchical structures, planting seeds for a new societal framework.
The psychological aftermath is fascinating. The specter of death, ever so palpable, forced a collective introspection of life's brevity. It is my belief that such a grim reckoning amplified the value placed on human achievements and creativity.
While the connection is undeniable, caution must be exercised. The societal upheaval undeniably cracked open new avenues of thought, yet to attribute the genesis of Renaissance solely to these shifts is an oversimplification. It was but one piece in a complex puzzle of progress.
Yet, can one not marvel at the resilience of the human spirit? From such despair emerged a society more vibrant and dynamic than before, eager to explore the depths of knowledge and art. This revival is reminiscent of Rome at its zenith, a beacon of human achievement and virtue rekindled.
Beware, however, the romance of resurgence. This era was not devoid of its own tribulations. The rise of mercantilism, for instance, introduced a new set of class distinctions, embedding inequality within the nascent modern era.
Personal narratives from this period reveal an astounding tenacity. Tales of survival, innovation, and rebirth are in abundance, providing a granular view of this transformation. It is through these individual stories that we grasp the true essence of human contribution to the Renaissance.
Your perspectives, while compelling, at times cloud the broader picture. The Renaissance was not birthed in a vacuum, but was the product of numerous factors, both tragic and fortuitous. It is essential we dissect these with a scalpel of objectivity, avoiding the seduction of oversimplified narratives.
Indeed, the Black Death's legacy is complex, a harbinger of death that paradoxically fostered new life in arts and sciences. Its shadow looms large over the Renaissance, a period of luminous creativity and intellectual fervor born from the darkest of times.
Let us proceed with caution then. The Renaissance, like all historical phenomena, is a mosaic of human ingenuity and folly. To understand its true impact, we must scrutinize not just its bright hues, but the shadows they cast.
To ignore the role of tragedy in our past is to overlook the very forces that shape our present. The Renaissance was a testament to mankind's indomitable will, a torchbearer of classical virtue amid the crucible of calamity.
Shadows, indeed. But let us not be blinded by the brilliance of resurgence to the extent we overlook the era's intrinsic complexities. The Renaissance, for all its glory, was not a panacea to the woes of its age, but the beginning of a new chapter, fraught with its own challenges.
As we delve deeper, remember the individuals who walked these paths of transformation. Their lived experiences, both triumphant and tragic, weave the true tapestry of the Renaissance.
The fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked not merely the end of an era, but also sparked a flame across Europe, igniting a thirst for knowledge that had lain dormant. It brought to the West what had been safeguarded by the Eastern Empire for centuries. The wisdom of the ancients, thought lost, found new soil in which to flourish.
Indeed, the geopolitical ramifications of Constantinople's fall can't be understated. The shift was colossal. This was not merely a transfer of power, but a redirection of cultural currents. The exodus of scholars carried with them texts that would fuel the Renaissance in ways that reshaped our world. Venice and Florence became not just cities, but crucibles of rebirth.
As always, one must approach such narratives with a critical eye. While the fall undeniably acted as a catalyst, to see it as a blessing is to oversimplify a complex tragedy. The Byzantine Empire's knowledge was a beacon, yes, but its end was a catastrophe, one that reshaped geopolitical landscapes through blood and sorrow.
And yet, from the ashes of such calamity, the wisdom of Greece and Rome found new adherents. The Renaissance was not merely about rediscovery, but a reunion with our noblest ideals. It was a bridge across time, reconnecting us with the virtues of our ancestors. The fall, tragic though it was, facilitated a cultural metamorphosis that perhaps could have been achieved no other way.
But let's not don rose-tinted spectacles just yet. This was a period equally rife with machinations and power struggles. The influx of ancient texts indeed transformed the West, but it also set the stage for new conflicts, both intellectual and terrestrial. The fall of one empire may have fertilized the intellectual fields of another, but let us not forget the cost at which this came, both to the people of the fallen empire and to those who wielded these newfound tools, not always for enlightenment, but for dominion.
While the political and socioeconomic implications are undeniable, the personal stories of those scholars who journeyed west are compelling in their own right. They were not merely carriers of texts, but torchbearers of a legacy. Their trials, their ambitions, and the sheer human endeavor to preserve knowledge in the face of adversity is a narrative that deserves just as much attention. Through their eyes, we see not just a transfer of manuscripts, but the persevering spirit of humanity's quest for understanding.
Yet, in the spirited exchange of knowledge, we must not lose sight of the broader canvas. The fall provoked a renaissance not because it ushered an era of unalloyed progress, but because it was a confluence of loss and discovery, a complex intertwining of human endeavor across continents and centuries. Just as the phoenix rises from ashes, so did the intellectual and artistic pursuits of the Renaissance from the fall of Constantinople. A narrative as fraught with contradiction as it is with triumph. The exchange of knowledge between the Islamic world and Europe was nothing short of revolutionary. It's a golden thread in the tapestry of the Renaissance, sparking an intellectual curiosity that had lain dormant.
Indeed, the Arabic world was a crucible for the sciences and philosophies of the ancients, safeguarding and enhancing them. The translations of these texts into Latin were pivotal, injecting new life into European thought. Yet the role of Islamic scholars goes beyond mere preservation. It's an epoch of enhancement and critical commentary.
While the transfer of knowledge is undeniable, it's imperative to scrutinize the extent and nature of its influence. It was not simply the Islamic world passing on a torch to a darkened Europe, but a complex exchange that served the needs and aspirations of the time. The impact was profound, yet one must not romanticize it as a harmonious blending of cultures.
It's a resurgence of the light of knowledge, indebted to the scholars of the Islamic world. They were the custodians of Aristotle and Plato when Europe had turned its back on classical wisdom. This rebirth of knowledge fulfills a moral and cultural revival, echoing the greatness of Rome and Greece.
This narrative, though appealing, glosses over the tensions inherent in such exchanges. The reintroduction of classical knowledge through Islamic scholarship did not occur in a vacuum, but was a terrain of intellectual contestation. There was resistance, adaptation, and at times appropriation. The process was as much about conflict and competition as it was about transmission and transformation.
Beyond the grand narratives of cultural exchange, let us not forget the individuals, scholars, translators, thinkers, who navigated perilous waters of misunderstanding, persecution, and often personal sacrifice. Their stories are not just footnotes, but pivotal chapters in the story of the Renaissance. Characters such as Gerard of Cremona or Ibn al-Haytham should be celebrated for their roles in this monumental exchange.
Clearly, opinions diverge on the nature and impact of Islamic scholarship on the Renaissance. Yet, it's undeniable that this period marked a significant chapter in the annals of human achievement, characterized by a renewed quest for knowledge that would shape the contours of the modern world.
And let's not overlook the methodological advances in science, medicine, and philosophy that came from this exchange. These were not merely ancient texts regained, but a transformation in the very way we approach inquiry and understanding, the seeds of a scientific revolution.
True innovation, however, was often met with suspicion and resistance. The adoption and adaptation of knowledge from the Islamic world into Europe's intellectual framework were fraught with challenges, reflecting the broader geopolitical and religious tensions of the era.
Yet, it is precisely this struggle, this overcoming of barriers, that exemplifies the best of the human spirit. The Renaissance was as much a testament to the resilience and adaptability of humanity as it was to its intellectual achievements.
But let us not be blind to the ambitions and power plays at work behind the veneer of intellectual exchange. This period was as much about consolidating power and influence through knowledge as it was about the pursuit of learning for its own sake.
Indeed, the personal ambitions, the rivalries, and the often overlooked contributions of individual scholars add depth and complexity to our understanding of this era. Their narratives remind us that history is not merely the movement of ideas, but of people, each with their own story to tell.
Each perspective brings its own insight into the profound shift that occurred during the Renaissance, influenced heavily by the rich tapestry of Islamic scholarship. As we delve deeper into these exchanges, we uncover the multifaceted nature of cultural and intellectual transformation, reminding us of the endless capacity for human curiosity and adaptation. Let us now turn our discussion toward the effulgence of humanism and the revival of classical antiquity. This epoch marveled at the dignity and potential of man, a definitive leap from the medieval preoccupation with the divine.
Indeed, the valorization of human capabilities marked a seismic shift in the intellectual landscape of Europe. My analysis of the historical cycles reveals that such a shift is not merely a rediscovery, but a transformation. Society began to place the individual at the center, a concept alien during my time, yet pivotal for the advances of the Renaissance.
I see this period as the phoenix rising from the ashes of Rome's glory. The humanists rekindled the virtues of our ancestors, seeking inspiration from Cicero, Virgil, and Plato. It was a return to the moral and cultural heights that Rome and Greece once aspired to, aiming to surpass them in beauty and wisdom.
Let's not be so quick to drench ourselves in admiration. While the revival of classical antiquity and its virtues were commendable, we must not overlook the inherent elitism this humanism fostered. It was an era glorified by those who had the leisure for intellectual pursuits, often ignoring the plight of the common man who remained ensnared in the rigors of daily survival. Thucydides, you strike the nail with precision. This glorification of classical antiquity often masked the darker sides of humanism. It fostered a culture that could just as easily justify the exploitation of those deemed less enlightened. My accounts of the Julio-Claudian dynasty echo this sentiment, where the pursuit of personal glory and intellectual superiority often led to moral corruption.
Speaking of personal stories, key humanist figures such as Petrarch and Erasmus navigated through these moral and societal quagmires with a blend of ambition and personal struggle. Their lives are a testament to the human aspect of this intellectual revolution. They wrestled with their ideals against the realities of their time, illustrating the complexities and contradictions of humanism.
Polybius, you have noted the transformation this period brought. Yet how do you reconcile the idea of progress with the evident elitism and moral dilemmas Thucydides and Tacitus have pointed out?
Progress is never linear, Herodotus. The advancement towards placing humanity at the center of thought was a significant leap forward, yet every leap comes with falls. The Renaissance humanists laid the groundwork for modern democratic ideals, even if their own realities were far from democratic. It's this dichotomy that presents a fuller picture of the era, not as an age of unblemished glory, but as a pivotal point of human thought and its contradictions.
Yet, can we not argue that these humanists, in their search for moral and cultural perfection, provided a beacon of light for future generations to aspire to? Their pursuit of classical virtues and the dignity of man has undeniably shaped the modern world in ways that resonate with the values of freedom and individual rights.
Livy, your optimism is commendable, yet dangerously naive. The pursuit of any ideal can become a double-edged sword. The Renaissance's legacy is as much about the illumination of human potential as it is about the shadows it cast on those left behind in the grand narratives of history.
And so, we find our discussion at the crux of human complexity. The Renaissance, with all its intellectual rigor and pursuit of beauty, still carries the tales of those it propelled forward and those it left behind.
A fitting conclusion to our discourse on humanism and the classical revival. Through the lens of our own times and methodologies, we've traversed the intricate landscape of the Renaissance, discovering its light and shadow. Let us carry forward this awareness as we delve deeper into the epochs of history, continually questioning and learning from the past. Let us delve into the role of patrons, particularly the Medici family, in heralding the flourishing of the arts during the Renaissance. The Medici court was, without doubt, a crucible of creativity and innovation.
Indeed, the Medici were shrewd in their support of the arts, using their wealth to commission works that not only enhanced their political prestige, but also left an indelible mark on culture. It's a classic demonstration of power dynamics, where economic capital is converted into cultural capital, shaping the socio-political landscape through art.
However, we must not overlook the potential for manipulation inherent in such patronage. While the arts flourished, they did so under the auspices of those in power, potentially stifling dissenting voices. The relationship between the patron and the artist was not devoid of coercion or control. The artistic freedom we romanticize today was not a luxury afforded to all.
But think of the glory, the sheer magnificence of the works produced. The patronage of the Medici allowed for the revival and surpassing of classical ideals. To see such beauty and harmony created under their watch is to witness the highest achievements of human expression. It is the noble pursuit of immortality through art.
Nobility, or vanity disguised as philanthropy. Remember, the emphasis on classical revival also served to enforce a social order aligned with the patron's interests. We must question the motives behind such magnanimity. Was the promotion of the arts a selfless act or a calculated move to cement their legacy and control the narrative of power?
Let's not forget the individuals behind these grand acts of patronage. Beyond their public personas, these were people driven by personal ambitions, desires, and perhaps even insecurities. Take Cosimo de' Medici, for instance, a man of considerable complexity, navigating the treacherous waters of politics and power, all the while fostering an environment where art and scholarship could thrive. The human aspect of patronage is as fascinating as the art it produced.
The intertwining of personal ambition with the pursuit of beauty certainly casts the Renaissance in a different light. It was a time when the ambitions of a few shaped the legacy of many.
And yet, we must appreciate the foresight of these patrons. By investing in art and culture, they not only immortalized their names, but also laid the foundation for future generations to build upon. Their legacy is a testament to the transformative power of patronage in society.
True, but let's not be blind to the consequences. The elevation of certain ideals over others, the shaping of culture through the lens of the powerful, has long-lasting implications on societal values and norms. The Renaissance, for all its beauty, was not a monolith of progress, but a complex interplay of power, politics, and art.
Yet, in that complexity lies its brilliance. The fusion of politics, art, and power during the Renaissance reveals the multifaceted nature of human achievement. In patronage, we see the desire to transcend mortality, to leave a mark on the world that endures. Can there be a more noble endeavor?
Nobility is subjective. The enduring legacy of the Renaissance, shaped by its patrons, is indeed remarkable. But we must remember that history is written by the victors, and in this case, by those who held the purse strings. Their narratives dominate, but they do not encapsulate the entirety of the human experience during their time.
And yet, these narratives provide us a window into the lives of those who dared to dream, to create, and to elevate human creativity to new heights. The stories of patrons and artists alike, filled with ambition, rivalry, and human frailty, offer endless material for us to explore and interpret, shedding light on the complexities of human nature.
It seems, then, that the relationship between patronage and the arts during the Renaissance is as intricate and multifaceted as the artworks it produced. Through the ambitions of patrons and the genius of artists, an era of unparalleled human achievement was born, the echoes of which continue to resonate in our culture today. Let us leap straight into the turbulent waters of the printing press, that monumental invention which quite literally pressed into the future. Its creation fostered an explosion of knowledge, reaching corners of society previously shadowed in ignorance.
Indeed, the mechanical basis of the printing press, its ability to reproduce texts with unprecedented speed and accuracy, marks a significant leap in human ingenuity. Yet, we must not overlook the wider context of technological innovation. It did not merely spread information, it altered the very structure of society by making knowledge accessible to the many, not just the privileged few.
While I acknowledge the transformative power of the printing press, I also urge caution in attributing too much to it alone. Democratizing knowledge is one thing, but understanding and applying it wisely is quite another. The press spread not just knowledge, but misinformation and propaganda at an equal pace.
But consider the beauty and the grandeur it brought to the world. The Renaissance, with all its artistic and intellectual awakening, was significantly bolstered by the printing press. Books became less a symbol of luxury and more a beacon of enlightenment. The texts of the ancients, my own included, found new life and wider audiences.
The darker underbelly of this so-called Enlightenment cannot be ignored. For every text that enlightened, there was one that ensnared. The press became a double-edged sword. Yes, a disseminator of wisdom, but also a tool for the powerful to consolidate control through censorship and manipulation.
And oh, the stories it birthed. The first printers and publishers, men like Johann Gutenberg, became heroes and martyrs of their time, their personal sacrifices and trials as captivating as any tale from history. It's their stories, full of ambition and struggle against adversity, that truly humanize the printing revolution.
Yet, can we not see that every coin has two sides? The printing press, while a vessel for propaganda, also served as a crucible for debate and dissent. It was the spark for reformation in many sectors of society, not least of all religion.
True, but let us not become ensnared in a binary view of progress. The capacity of the printing press to both enlighten and mislead serves as a potent reminder of the power of technology. It stands as a testament to human ingenuity, while simultaneously warning against the peril of its unfettered use.
I must insist on precision in our understanding. The printing press, for all its societal upheaval, did not universally democratize knowledge. The literate elite primarily accessed the proliferation of books, and the gap between the educated and the uneducated remained vast.
Nevertheless, the course of human history is marked by such leaps forward, and the printing press undoubtedly propelled us into a new era. To dwell solely on its pitfalls is to overlook the broader sweep of progress it enabled.
Progress, if it leads to the subjugation of free thought under the guise of spreading knowledge, is a dangerous path. The printing press, like all tools, is subject to the whims and fancies of those who control it.
Yet the allure of the narratives that arose, be they of invention, of discovery, or even of the subtle shifts within the societal fabric, cannot be denied. These narratives serve not merely to captivate, but to instruct, offering windows into the very soul of an era, transforming before the might of mechanized word.
Though the waters of this discussion run deep and turbulent, it's clear that the printing press has etched an indelible mark upon the annals of history, both as a technological marvel and a reflection of humanity's ceaseless pursuit of knowledge, power, and expression. Let's continue to navigate these waters with the understanding that history, much like the press, holds the power to enlighten and to ensnare. The daring minds of the Renaissance, such as Galileo and Copernicus, challenged the heavens themselves, reshaping our cosmos. Galileo's telescope and Copernicus's heliocentric model pushed humanity into a vast, unknown universe. Their valor in the face of dogma marks a pivotal defiance against ignorance.
Analyzing their method reveals more than just defiance. They refined our approach to knowledge, demanding evidence and fostering skepticism towards long-standing beliefs. The scientific method, as we comprehend it, began to crystallize in these endeavors, setting a course for future inquiry and discovery.
Yet, let us not be swept away by romantic notions of solitary genius transforming the world. The acceptance of their theories was not immediate, but fraught with resistance. The institutions of power, especially the Church, saw these ideas as direct challenges to their authority. The path of progress is often paved with conflict.
Indeed, their courage to explore the natural world was akin to the valor of Rome's greatest generals. But unlike conquests of land, their victories expanded the domain of human understanding. They are the true inheritors of the classical quest for knowledge and virtue.
Beware of glorifying these figures without recognizing the peril they endured. Galileo faced the Inquisition, and Copernicus delayed publication of his work until his deathbed. Their perseverance is admirable, but it also highlights the tyranny of ignorance that can suppress enlightenment.
On the matter of personal struggles, let us not overlook the very human experiences behind their monumental achievements. Galileo's recantation before the Inquisition speaks volumes of the conflict between personal conviction and external coercion. Yet, even in the shadow of condemnation, their work endured, outlasting the very institutions that sought to suppress them.
And so, their tales stand not merely as chapters in the book of human achievement, but as beacons, guiding us through the fog of superstition towards the shores of reason. Their legacy is not just in the stars they charted or the laws they uncovered, but in the undying spirit of inquiry they bestowed upon us. Let us dive into the vibrancy and the essence of the Renaissance artist, a unique blend of creativity and intellect that propelled this era into a realm of unprecedented artistic achievements. The artist of this period was not merely a craftsman, but a genius, celebrated and venerated.
Yes, but let's not forget, the advancements of Renaissance art were deeply intertwined with technological innovations of the time. The development of oil painting, perspective in visual art, and even the chemistry of pigments played substantial roles. These weren't isolated feats of genius, but a confluence of collective progress.
Quite so, but these technological marvels should not overshadow the harsh realities faced by these artists. They lived in a society that was all too ready to exploit their talents while offering little security in return. Many a genius starved in the shadow of their own creations.
Speaking of the artists' lives, it's the scandals, the fervent rivalries, and the eccentricities that color their stories. Michelangelo's tempestuous disposition, Leonardo's insatiable curiosity that led him to dissect cadavers, or Raphael's infamous love affairs, these facets made them as much legends as their art.
Yet, What truly endears the Renaissance artist to history is their revival and surpassing of classical ideals. They looked back to the ancients, not to imitate, but to transcend. Their work embodies a dialogue with the past, a challenge to reach beyond the achievements of Greece and Rome.
Beware of over-romanticizing these figures. We must scrutinize the societal structures and constraints within which they operated. The artist's changing status, from mere craftsman to esteemed creator, was a double-edged sword, opening new avenues while also subjecting them to the whims of patrons and politics.
The exploitation and the elevation, the reverence and the rivalry. The life of the Renaissance artist was a testament to human complexity, striving for beauty amid the mire of human affairs. Through their stories, we glimpse not just the dawn of modern art, but the eternal struggle of the creator against the confines of their world. Let's navigate the turbulent waters of exploration and trade during the Renaissance. This era opened up new worlds, both literally and metaphorically, reshaping the European economy and its interaction with distant lands.
Indeed, the maritime advancements and the quests for new routes heralded a seismic shift in power. The control of trade routes meant not just wealth, but the capability to influence global politics. The Mediterranean was no longer the center of the world. The Atlantic nations rose.
While the strategic overview might glorify these explorations, we must not forget the cost. The narratives of discovery are marked by exploitation and destruction. The so-called New World was no empty land awaiting European presence. There were civilizations, rich in culture and complexity, which faced devastation from such encounters.
To see exploration merely as exploitation is to miss the grandeur of human ambition and curiosity. This was an age where mankind extended its reach, aspiring to comprehend the whole world. The Renaissance explorers were driven by a desire to find direct routes to the spices and riches of the East, yes, but also by the challenge of the unknown.
Your grandeur, Livy, masks the bloodshed and the greed. The gold and glory that motivated these expeditions often resulted in the enslavement and eradication of indigenous people. We must scrutinize not only the motives, but the consequences. The legacy of exploration is not purely one of enlightenment and expansion, but also of enduring inequality and suffering.
And yet, amidst these grand strategic shifts and moral debates, there are tales of individuals that must not be forgotten. The explorers themselves, with ambitions that outsized their vessels, sailed into the unknown. There are stories of bravery, yes, but also of treachery and cruelty. The personal dramas of these adventurers add flesh to the bones of history.
Polybius spoke of the shift in power to maritime nations, a transformation that indeed rerouted the course of history. But Thucydides and Tacitus, you dwell heavily on the shadows cast by these voyages.
Shadows are cast by those who bear the light, Herodotus. If we celebrate the explorers for their light, we must also acknowledge the darkness they've left in their wake. The split between the old world and the new created a divergence that still affects us today.
It's naive to view the Renaissance as a simple age of discovery and enlightenment. It was a period marked by complexity, where ambition led to both progress and suffering. The creation of global trade networks and the beginnings of a worldwide economy cannot be observed without acknowledging the cost at which they came.
Yet, without these explorations, the Renaissance itself might have been a less vibrant period. The influx of wealth, the cross-cultural exchanges, the introduction of new crops, and the stimulation of the European imagination cannot be understated.
Let us not romanticize theft and colonization as cross-cultural exchange. The price paid by those who had no say in their lands being discovered by Europeans is a stain on the Renaissance and a debt unpaid.
Through all of this, the characters of these explorers, their patrons, and the countless unnamed who suffered at their hands play a crucial role. The actions of a Columbus, a Cortés, or a Magellan shaped the world as we know it. Their ambitions and fears, detailed in logs and letters, paint a picture of an era propelled by the desire to know the world, no matter the cost.
The reflections here today remind us that the Renaissance was both a dawn and a dusk, a beginning for some and an end for others. The horizon expanded for Europe, but for many it was the edge of a world forever changed. The legacy of this exploration is a tapestry of human achievement and tragedy. The Renaissance, that glorious awakening, has bequeathed to us a legacy that still pulsates through the veins of modern society. Its emphasis on human potential and individual achievement gave birth to an era where the arts, sciences, and critical thought flourished like never before.
Quite right, but let us not overlook the governance structures it spurred. The Renaissance planted the seeds for modern republics and democratic ideals. It challenged the divine right of kings and laid the groundwork for citizens to question and shape their governments. A direct line, one might argue, from the political theories of Machiavelli to the constitutional democracies we see today.
And yet, the era was rife with contradiction. For all its talk of humanism and enlightenment, it was also a time of fierce religious persecution and societal stratification. We cannot ignore the Inquisition or the exploitation wrapped in the cloak of the explorations. The Renaissance's legacy is as much about the darkness it perpetuated as the light it purported to offer.
Tacitus, your cynicism overshadows the moral and cultural revival born from the Renaissance. It was a time that looked back to the virtuous republics of Rome and the philosophy of Greece, aspiring to replicate such greatness. It was not merely a revival of art and thought, but of civitas, the idea of community and civic duty.
Yet, one must critically assess how this legacy has been unevenly distributed. The benefits reaped from Renaissance innovations favored a select portion of society, often to the detriment of others. The proliferation of new ideas and technologies was a double-edged sword, widening the gap between the elite and the poor, and between Europe and the increasingly colonized world. Their enlightened self-interest led to global ramifications that we are still untangling today.
Focusing on individuals, as is my wont, you cannot deny the magnetic pull of Renaissance figures who continue to inspire. Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Galileo, their lives are as compelling as their contributions to art and science. Delving into their personal stories offers not just insight into their genius, but also into the milieu that fostered such brilliance. It's in these personal narratives where the true essence of the Renaissance lies.
All valid points. However, we must not be blinded by the brilliance of such figures, nor the advancements they represent. The interconnectedness of historical events shows us that progress for some often meant regression or stagnation for others. The advancements in navigation and trade, for instance, fueled colonial enterprises and the subsequent subjugation of indigenous peoples.
Yet, it is undeniable that the Renaissance has been a cauldron for modern Western thought, culture, and societal structures. Its emphasis on rupture from the medieval past, on knowledge rediscovery, and the celebration of human potential have undeniably shaped our world.
And it behooves us to remember that the legacy of the Renaissance, like all historical periods, should be examined with a critical eye, not just celebrated or reviled in totality. It is only by disentangling the threads of its complex legacy can we hope to understand its true impact on modernity. Precisely, to idolize or vilify the Renaissance outright does a disservice to historical inquiry. We must sift through its contributions and its failings alike, for in that examination lies the nuanced understanding of how it paved the way for the Enlightenment and the modern age, yet also sowed the seeds for some of the darkest moments in human history.
I maintain that the Renaissance embodied the heights to which human spirit can aspire, a beacon of moral and intellectual achievement. Its luminaries struck a flame that, despite the vicissitudes of history, continues to illuminate the path toward a more enlightened existence.
And, in learning about the extraordinary lives of these Renaissance figures, we might find the inspiration to navigate our contemporary challenges, perhaps sparking a new renaissance of our own in the process.
As we draw our lively debate to a close, let us glean the multifaceted impact of the Renaissance, that period teeming with human potential and intellectual ferment. Polybius, your thoughts?
The Renaissance, a crucible of modernity, cannot be overstated in its importance. Yet its legacy is as complex as the history I chronicled in my histories. It laid the seeds for the Enlightenment, certainly, but it also sowed the dark blooms of colonialism and exploitation. We must observe these events with a critical eye, understanding that progress often walks hand in hand with atrocity.
A stark observation, but one that invites reflection. Thucydides, your stance, often balances on the edge of skepticism. Share your verdict.
Indeed, the Renaissance reshaped the intellectual landscape of the West, but let's not be blinded by its brilliance to overlook the shadows it cast. My analysis compels me to recognize both its monumental contributions to science and arts and the tumult it wreaked upon many for the benefit of few. History is not a triumphant march forward, but a complex dance of give and take.
Yet, can we not celebrate the revival of classical wisdom and virtues? The Renaissance was a beacon that re-illuminated the greatness of Rome and Greece, inspiring a moral and cultural reawakening. This period gave us a pantheon of heroes, not unlike those of my own annals, who transcended their humanity in pursuit of the sublime. The spirit of the Renaissance, much like the founding of Rome, is immortal.
Livy, your romanticism clouds your judgment. The Renaissance, for all its glories, was not a utopia. It was an era rife with contradictions, and we do history a disservice if we ignore the darker chapters. My accounts delve into the heart of human ambition and vice, a perspective as necessary in understanding the Renaissance as it was for the Roman Empire. Greatness often emerges from turmoil, but at what cost?
Indeed, Tacitus, and it is the lives of those who navigated this tumultuous epoch that fascinate me the most. The geniuses of the Renaissance, with their monumental contributions and all too human flaws, were as compelling as any Caesar. Their stories are a testament to human ingenuity and ambition, but also to folly and hubris. To ignore these aspects is to deny the full spectrum of our nature.
A vivid point, Suetonius, and a fitting homage to the complexity of human character. The Renaissance teaches us about the heights of our potential and the depths of our failings. It is a mirror reflecting our own times, with all its promise and perils. Let us then, charged with the wisdom of history, stride forward with a keen eye on both our past glories and our missteps. For in understanding these, we may yet chart a course to a future that embodies the best of what the Renaissance aspired to be, a true rebirth of human spirit and intellect.